Hello weaving friends, I am excited about today's video because I get to introduce you to something that is brand new and I think you're going to really like it. So Ashford have just brought out this new tool and it's specifically for table looms. Now the thing that I really love about companies like Ashford is that they listen to their customers, us, the weavers, the spinners, the fibre arts artists. They listen to the feedback on their equipment and they then provide solutions to that. Now this table loom that I have beside me, this is the Ashford 16-inch. But a few years back, before I ever bought my floor loom, there's a whole story to this, but I had another table loom. It was an Ashford table loom as well. And it was the 80 centimetre, which is around 30-inch width. It was quite large. And it was fantastic. But basically, my heart's desire was to get a floor loom and I needed to fund that somehow. I ended up selling that larger table loom to fund my floor loom. Now, years down the track to now, I have the 16-inch, which is just perfect for me for teaching. But going back to that larger table loom, one of the issues was that because of the width of the table loom, often when you would send the shuttle across, or you wanted to send the shuttle across like on a traditional floor loom that you could, one frustrating thing that would often happen was that the shuttle would dive through the warp to the bottom. And then you would have to find where your shuttle had taken a dive and you'd have to bring it up again. And it was kind of frustrating. And that was especially for the times where you might have a yarn or a project or you just hadn't done that well with winding on and your tension wasn't that fabulous, then that would make that even more likely to happen. Now, because it was a wider loom and I needed to get the shuttle from one side to the other, it was more of an issue than, say, with something like the 16-inch where, like at the moment, I've got this nearly fully warped, the whole width of it. But I can still basically pass a shuttle from side to side fairly easily, depending on the shuttle size, of course. But for something like the larger table loom that I had, you would really want to be able to shoot that shuttle across. So having said all of that, brings me to what this new tool is. Before I introduce you to the new tool, I know that someone is probably going to ask me, what am I wearing today? Well, this garment right here, which is a very, very pretty color, it's a machine knit triangle shawl, and I do have a pattern available for this, and I'll link that down below for anyone who's interested. But the cool thing about a triangle shawl is you can wear it in a variety of ways. So today I'm wearing it with the kind of the point of the triangle over to the side, like over my shoulder. And then I've kind of just slung the rest over and I've put a little pin here. Now the pin is less than ideal, okay? I admit that thoroughly. I've been trying to convince my husband for some time to have a go at whittling me a really nice shawl pin or, you know, making me some sort of shawl pin. It hasn't quite happened yet. He's very busy. But yes, a very nice shawl pin would be a great addition. So the triangle shawl, it's knit on a flatbed knitting machine. It's all knit in one piece. It's a relatively easy piece depending on how confident you are with your knitting machine. It's very rewarding and it's just absolutely lovely when it comes off the machine. So that is what I have on today. So when you look at my table loom, some of you might be able to see that there is something a little bit extra here, and that is this piece right here. And this is the new tool, it's a shuttle race. Now, if you're not familiar with the idea of a shuttle race, you'll often see them on floor looms. The idea is that when you open up your shed, so let's just open up a random one here, and you enter your shuttle into the shed, you have a kind of a support across here for your boat shuttle. Now, I'm gonna have some demonstration video of me actually weaving with this afterwards. But before I do that, I wanted to actually show you how simple it is to put this shuttle race onto the loom. So this is how your shuttle race would arrive in a box, very nicely wrapped, as everything from Ashford is. Nice and protected in there. You'll also have a little instruction booklet Everything's wrapped up in paper and it's separated, so it's easy to find the pieces, and there really aren't that many pieces, so it's quite simple. You know, I'm always daunted by putting things together. I usually enlist my husband to do it for me, to be honest, but this time I thought this looks simple enough even for me. So there's a little bag there with some elastic and some tools, and of course your instructions. So the first thing to do here is to remove the wing nuts that are at the top of the beater rail. There's a little wing nut and there's a washer on each side, and then you go to the other side and you do the exact same thing. And then you just, once you get those wing nuts off and the bolts are out, then you can just remove that and put it to the side. You can keep your bolts in there if you like, just to keep track of them a little bit more easily. So that whole piece just comes off, and just pop that to the side for later on. And then as far as the reed goes, that can also just pop out of place because it's just sitting in a groove on the bottom of the beater, and you can just put that through to the back. Now if you have a warp on like I do, you might need to angle the reed a little bit to get past those beater arms. That's what I needed to do to be able to get the reed to the back. So just angle it one side in first, then the other, and then you can just sit it against the castle. Now the elastic ties that are there already, you can try to undo the knot if you want to save them. I actually tried to undo my knots and it was just too difficult, so I cut them instead. So it does say that in the instructions that you can either undo the knots or cut them. They do provide extra cords, so you're covered there. Then you use the little spanners that come with the kit, and you remove the top nuts and washers and bolts from the beater arms. So you've got washers in a couple of different places, so just be careful they don't drop and roll off somewhere as you take this apart, because you don't always remember what's where, and you know how many pieces you put in when you're actually assembling the loom. Then we go to the other side of the beater arm, and we're going to do exactly the same thing. So using the two little spanners that came with the kit, use one to hold the bolt on one side and another to turn on the other side. These are not hard to get undone because they're not screwed on that tightly anyway. You don't screw them too tight because otherwise your beater arms are hard to move. Just make sure that you keep all your little bits and pieces as you take them off. So once that's done, we can actually move those beater arms off from each side. And move that out of the way. And it's easiest to do the next bit if it's kind of sitting towards you, like I just showed you there, just to lay them out and sit them towards you. Because now we're going to use a screwdriver, and I use a Phillips head because it's easiest to use to undo the screws that are there, attaching the beater arms. And then we do the same thing on the other side. So all those parts come apart. That's the bottom rail of the beater there. I'm going to keep that handy. And then the next step is to undo the screws that hold our little rubber stoppers on. Don't lose the rubber stoppers because we're going to put them back on. And likewise with the last screw that we took off. And then we do the other side as well. So there are some parts that we are actually replacing to put the shuttle race on, and there are other parts that we are reusing. So with the little stoppers, we're going to grab the new pieces. Okay, so these are the new arms. And you can see that little hole at the bottom there is the right place to put the stopper back in. So this is one of the parts that we're recycling, is the rubber stoppers. And you're going to want a screwdriver to be able to screw that down properly. And then we'll do the same to the other new beater arms. So in your kit, there are 2 new beater arms, and they are actually going to replace the old ones. There are only 3 wooden pieces in the actual kit, so you're not going to get them mixed up. You can see very clearly which is a beater arm. The beater arms are both these curved pieces, and they look very much like the beater arms that we just took off. So you want to screw them in nice and tight. Now the next job is to attach the new beater arms to the beater rail, but we want to attach one side first, just using the same screw that we had with the other beater arms, and of course we're using the original beater rail. So this is the bottom beater rail at the moment. And then the next part's important. If you've got a warp on the loom already, you need to pop that beater rail underneath the warp. So you've got one arm attached, just pop that beater rail underneath. Okay, make sure your beater arm is facing the right direction so you can see the curve of mine. And then we're going to attach the second beater arm. You can lay them down if you want to. They seem to want to lay down anyway. Mine just fell down, so it's easier to do things when they're flat anyway. So using that same screw that we had before, the original screw, and it's just above the stopper, the rubber stopper there, we attach that to the beater rail with the screwdriver. So now we're looking a little bit more like our original table loom was. We've got to reattach the beater arms, and we use all the same hardware for doing that. So make sure you put your washers in the right place. So I've got one in between the 2 arms there. And then I've got the bolt going in. I'm just putting that in temporarily with my hand while I get my other pieces organized. Another washer that goes on the opposite side, and then the bolt on top of that. And the nut on top of that. And then once you've got the basics in, you can tighten everything up, but you don't need to tighten it up straight away, just as long as everything is holding there, okay? So in goes my bolt, my washer in between the 2 arms. Then I need my other washer for the other side. And then my nut on top of that. Check that they're swinging okay. And then they can be tightened up if you want to. So I'm putting my reed back into the bottom of the rail where it sits in that groove. And then I want to find the top of the rail. So I had that just sitting aside before, and I left the bolts in there, so it was easy to find and locate and put back in. And I'm just going to put that back into position. And I'll need the original bolts and washers and wing nuts. So the bolt was already in there. There's my washer. Pop that on the back. And then the wing nut. And you can just put that on by hand. They're pretty easy to use. And then the same with the other side. The bolt is already through the hole. Pop the washer on and then screw on the wing nut after that. And then you tighten them up as you need to. You can always retighten things, like go back after and retighten things if they don't feel right, or loosen things if they feel too tight. Don't worry about it too much at this point, as long as things aren't falling apart. Okay, so now we grabbed a piece of the elastic and we're going to tie a knot in one end of the elastic, fairly close to the end of the elastic. That gives you a little bit more space later if you need to adjust. So I've tied the knot and I'm bringing it through the castle hole, and then I'm bringing it to the front of the beater arm. I find that a little bit easier than trying to tie a knot at the back, because it's right in front of you. So coming through from the back with the elastic cord, I find is just a little bit easier. And then we're going to do the same on the other side, of course. We're going to take one of our lengths of elastic, tie a knot close to the end. Just a single overhand knot is sufficient. That holds just fine. I'm going to thread that through the back of the castle at the hole that corresponds with the hole on the front of my beater arm. It's pretty easy to see where it corresponds. And I'm going to poke that through. They're easy to poke through, no problems with that. And tie the knot at the front. Again, just a simple overhand knot. Okay, so now we've got the piece that is the actual shuttle race, and we want to put that under the reed with the tapered edge facing the reed. So you saw me there pointing out the tapered edge. So I'm just laying that down there at the moment to get it in position. And then I take another of the elastic cords, there were 4 provided in the kit, and I'm going to tie a knot in one end again. And again, fairly close to the end, giving you a bit of leeway for adjusting if you need to afterwards. Then I'm going to thread that through the bottom of the hole in the beater arm, and then loop it around and thread it back through the next hole up. So you've got a loose end. And then I'm going to grab the shuttle race, and laying it flat, I'm going to put the elastic end through that hole right there. Then I'm going to tie a knot, again, fairly close to the end. This part's a little bit fiddly, so just do your best. So that knot is going to hold the shuttle race there for now. And we'll pop across to the other side and do the other elastic band. So again, a knot near the end. Pop that through the bottom hole on the beater arm, and once it's through, that one doesn't want to go through quite so well. There we go. Loop it around and bring the end through the top hole. Now pick up your shuttle race, make sure you've got it laying correctly with the tapered edge towards the back. Thread it through that hole and then make another knot underneath, fairly close to the end of the elastic. Alright, so that holds the shuttle race in place, but there's one more step to secure it and have it sitting in a tensioned way. And this is really cool actually. You grab the end of that knotted piece and you pull it through that groove, and then it just sits in that little groove there. Same on the other side. Grab the knotted piece, pull it through the little slotted part, and then it just sits there and the shuttle race is completely tensioned. And you can adjust these knots if you find that the angle is too much or it's not sitting right or whatever, if it doesn't seem right to you. And then you can easily take those knots out, the knotted elastic, and put them back in. It's just so quick and easy. So the weaving draft that I have on the table loom at the moment is one that I have wanted to try for a really long time. It is from Carol Strickler's 8 Shaft Patterns book, and I will link to that book down below if you are at all interested in 8 shaft weaving. It is a terrific book. And what I've done here is I'm just going to show you a little bit of my setup because I know at least some of you will be interested in that. I've got my laptop here and I've got my weaving program. So for me, I use Weave It Pro. I find that a really great program. And I've put in all of the threading and everything for this draft. And then I've put in the different treadlings. So if you have a look at this draft, it's on page 126. It has 4 different options. And for each option, the threading, the treadling are the same. It's just the tie-up that changes. So for a table loom, that's very easy to do. But to help me keep track, I'm using the treadling tracker here. And so I'm up to pick 60 and I'm just going to click on start tracking. So that's going to start recording where I'm up to, so then I never lose my place because that will definitely happen if I don't do some sort of recording. So for this pick, I'm looking at treadle 7. If I had a traditional tie-up for a floor loom, but I don't. So I'm on the table loom, so I'm going to just look up to that column and see that it's shaft 1 and then shafts 4 and 5. So they're the ones that I'm operating. Okay, and so that's for my pattern weft. I am weaving overshot here, so every pattern weft is followed by a tabby weft. If this makes absolutely no sense to you whatsoever, but you're interested in table loom weaving, I have a really good comprehensive table loom course. It is filmed on this loom. Okay, so let's see how the shuttle race helps us out with the boat shuttle. So I've put my boat shuttle into the open shed, and because of the shuttle race, it's just completely providing support directly underneath the bottom threads that have opened out. So when you open a shed, you have the top threads and you have the bottom threads. And it's the bottom threads that would normally be a problem for losing your shuttle halfway through the warp or whatever. Now, as I said, this is a shorter width of warp. It's a 16-inch. And so obviously if I had a wider loom like the 24-inch or the 30, is it 30 or 32? I can't remember, sorry, 30, maybe 32-inch, then I could display this a lot better. But we can still see, and it still helps with this size loom as well, that I can just shoot that boat shuttle straight through. See how quickly and smoothly that goes through. It is beautiful. It is really lovely. So that's that pick, and then I follow that up with a tabby. So do alternating tabby. As I said, you don't have to understand what I'm talking about when I say those things. It's more just a demonstration of how the shuttle race helps me to keep those shuttles going nice and flat and straight. Okay, so then I'm going to change to my next pattern pick. So I can see it's treadle 8, and I'm looking up the box. I'm looking up on the weaving draft tie up, and I can see it's shafts 2 and then shafts 5 and 6. So then I can grab my pattern weft, and again it's just shooting it straight back. So it makes for pretty fast weaving as well. Here comes my next tabby. So it's the opposite tabby that I'm using this time. So you always alternate your tabbies in overshot. And again, going to my next one is number 1. So I've got shafts 3, and then I've got these 2. That's for my pattern weft again. So here comes the shuttle. I'm also using floating selvages, so I'm being mindful of that. Paying attention to where my pattern shaft is coming in and going out. And then we've got the tabby. Isn't this a gorgeous draft, by the way? So lovely. And it's really nice when you take the time to thread up an 8 shaft and then you have the options of the different patterns like you do in Carol's book. So 4 different options. Another one of them I have tried already. And this is option number 4, just in case you are having a look at that yourself. So now I'm on to the next pattern weft and I'm doing number 4 and 7 and 8. So you'll notice that when I beat, because this is one thing that I thought when I first got the shuttle race is, oh, isn't that going to somehow interfere with the beating? Because it's like this little shelf sticking out attached to the beater just at the bottom of the reed there. And I thought, yeah, isn't that going to hit something here? But it actually, if you have a look, there's so much clearance space here. There's no way it's going to hit. And if it did, well, you shouldn't really have your warp advance that far towards your front cloth beam anyway. That's the only time that it could possibly hit. So no, it doesn't get in the way at all. But another thing you can do, let me just finish this last tabby pick. Otherwise, I'm going to come back to this later and be like, oh no, where was I up to? I have to do things in a certain order so that they're okay when I come back to them. Because I don't remember stuff. Okay, so that's my last tabby pick. And then I will just set my tracker onto the next pick. So I know when I come back to this, that's where I'm up to. But what I wanted to point out was it's really quick and easy to drop this down. If you want to drop it down so that, say when you are threading your reed, you can imagine that might get in the way when you're doing that. And so all you have to do is pull out your little cord here on one side, pull it out on the other side, and it comes out very simply. And then that just drops down like that so that it's not in the way. And then when you, of course, want to use it again, engage it, you just bring that cord back through where it was. Same on the other side. And ta-da, it's back on. And these cords are adjustable too. So if you find that your shuttle race is sitting up at too much of an angle, mine's at a slight angle, but I haven't found it to be a problem at all. You can adjust where your knots are on the cords and that will adjust how tightly it's tensioned. Another thing that the lovely people at Ashford sent to me was their brand new boat shuttle. I've got 2 Ashford boat shuttles. You just saw me using them in that video where I was demonstrating the shuttle race. But this little one that I'm using for the tabby, that's 11 inches. The one that I'm using for the pattern weft is 13 inches. And their new boat shuttle, which I haven't opened just yet, is 15 inches long. So this is a little bit long for my table loom for the 16-inch weaving width. But this is going to be fantastic on one of my bigger floor looms because I love using larger boat shuttles on those. So if you are interested in grabbing one of these shuttle races for your table loom, and as I already mentioned, you don't have to have a brand new table loom for this to fit. It fits 2 older Ashford table looms as well. This will be available by the time this video comes out from your local Ashford supplier. In Australia, I recommend the Thread Collective, and in the US, I recommend the Woolery. If you're in the UK, George Weir will be carrying these, as will Weft Blown, and I'll link to all of those suppliers down below. If you have any questions about anything that I've talked about today or anything that I've shown you, I'm more than happy to answer in the comments, so leave your comment down below. I check my comments frequently and I try to reply to everyone. Well, that's it from me today. Thank you so much for spending some time with me, and until next time, happy weaving.